Hi everyone. In today's video, we're going to talk about repeating item question and page logic. So this is a scenario where you have a repeating item where you want to have, for example, some logic attached to a particular question within that repeating item block. So for example, let's say you ask, what's your child's name? Does your child go to school? And this is a yes or no question that you only want the child's school name question to show up if the answer here is yes. So you're able to do that with question logic. And then if we want to talk about page logic, let's say if we have a page that we only want to show if the person says yes, that they have children, then we'd want to be able to say, show this if there are one or more children. And then no, we would say hide this if RI test, which is the name of the repeating item we made, is one or more. So I'll just show you kind of what this looks like and how to set it up. So when we actually run this particular workflow, we have an initial question of, do you have any children? And so if somebody says no, then they're going to be taken away from the rest of the questions because they've said no, and they're going to get taken to this page that we made that says hide this page if there are any repeating items answered, but if not, then you can show it. So we don't see the yes page and we don't see the repeating item questions. So this one got skipped, which is what we expect. This one got shown, which is what we expect. And the questions here got skipped because we said no. Now, what happens when we say yes? So when we say yes, let's go ahead and run this. We say yes to, do you have any children? Then we can see the repeating item here. What is your child's full name? I'm going to say child's name. Does your child go to school? So you can see we can't see the school's name question right now, but if we say yes, we can. If we say no, we can't. So that's how that logic works for the question. So let's say no, we could add another if we wanted to, and the same scenario here, or we can delete that and we can move on. To the end, we can see the yes page. We don't see the no page because of the logic, and then we see thank you at the end. So how to set this up? So the way to set this up is first you would want to have a repeating item question. So I'll just show you quickly. If you were going to add a page, you would just say add question, and then you would say repeating item. Then you would give it an item name so that you could refer to this particular repeating item. And then you can set up your questions here. Now, how I set up that initial question of do you have any children is you don't have to make a separate block. You can actually just go into your settings and say ask an initial question. And then you can say, do you have any children? Or are there any shareholders or whatever else? And then, or like, are there multiple members of this LLC and so on? So you can also make it to where the items are collected either on a single page or on separate pages. And you can make a minimum number of items or a maximum number of items. So this is how that would work. So you can just set that up as you'd like for your repeating item. Now, when it comes to the question logic is really easy. I'm just going to go ahead and delete this page really quick. So as you saw before, we can add logic to these questions simply by clicking on this little logic button here and saying show or hide if a variable, so for example, child full name, is a specific value. So let's say show if child full name is, and then you could put something in. But if it's a yes or no question, for example, then you can say if it is yes or no, or if it's a drop down and you have multiple choices, you can choose from there as well. So that's how you can attach the question logic. For the page logic, that's going to work the same as any other page logic. So I just have some simple pages here just so that there's something we can kind of test. And you would just use the same kind of logic symbol here. And you would just say show or hide if in whatever scenario, and then the variable name So that's the variable name of the repeating item that you're choosing here. So this one here. And then you're saying it's going to automatically give you this option, one or more. So this is actually important because it's not attached to any sort of input by the end user. It's by whether there are any or not. So essentially, you're saying if there are one or more repeating items, show this page, but hide this one if there are one or more, meaning if there are none. I mean, if there are no, if there are some repeating items, then we want this one hidden. So we only want this page to show if there are none. So significantly, if you try to actually have no initial question here, it's not going to work as expected. So right now we have an initial question that will make it to where these questions will show if somebody says yes. And so it's actually kind of a key component to this because let's say, so as we saw, when we run this right now, the way it's currently set up, if we say yes and we see the questions, then we have the ability to put in the child's name and then maybe their school. And then we see the, the yes page. And then we go to the end and we skip over the no page because we had a repeating item. Now, if we say no instead of yes, we go straight to the no page, right? If you take off that initial question, so if you don't ask an initial question, then the system doesn't have something to go on, even if nobody puts anything in here. So even if you made all of these not required and somebody didn't choose anything, then they would see both the yes and sorry, I mean to say that they would see the yes even though everything was blank. So essentially, they didn't enter any children's names or schools, but they still saw the yes page. So we wouldn't want that to be the case. So we'd need to have this initial question of do you have any children to kind of make this work the way that we really want it to. So if we go back to our edit side, we can see that logic looks good. If we go back to this page, that logic looks good. If we go back to this page, that logic looks good. So now when we run this, now that we have our initial question again, things should work as expected. So we'll put something in here. Let's say no. And then if yes, and then thank you. What some people do instead, so this is kind of my preferred way that I would do this, but you could have other scenarios where, let's say, there's a page that comes before this repeating item, for example, where on that page you ask sort of a yes or no question that says, do you have any children? And then, like, this could be like children, yes or no, for example. And then you could say only show this page if, like, so show if children yes or no is yes, for example. So that's kind of taking the place of that first question you have here. So it would just show this repeating item question and these three questions. If you say yes, so you would take off this question here. And then instead, you could have this page hinge on whether children yes or no is yes, or if children yes or no is no, like this. But it's just up to you how you would want to do this. I think it might be cleaner just to do it this way, but it's up to you how you would do this because maybe this question, is a determining factor for many things, or maybe it's a drop down, or maybe there's lots of other things that you would want these pages to hinge on more so than just whether or not this person said kind of yes or no. So that's another way you can think about how you might use question and page logic kind of around repeating items, specifically around page logic in this particular example. But I also wanted to point out one last thing, which is how I kind of was playing with this. So I wanted to point out the kind of feature update notifications page. So if you go to the gavel.io website, actually, if you just go to the homepage, for example, where to find this. So you can find the feature updates if you go down to the bottom and you find under company product updates. So if you click on this product updates page, then you'll see what's new at Gavel, some announcements, and you'll see the feature updates and the dates that they kind of came out. So, for example, a recent one that just came out May 9th is that if you want, you can click the arrows in a column title in Data Manager to sort all the sessions by value of that variable. So what they mean by this is if you go to your dashboard and you go into your Data Manager and you select, let's say, this one here that we've been working on, then you can actually use these little arrows here to sort the sessions by that particular answer or variable or whatever else. So let's maybe find one a little bit less complicated. So here, let's say you can kind of move things around by clicking on this button here. You can also, let's look at this test one. So let's say, for example, we want to sort this. Oh, let me try to find one where it has like an older, maybe this one. So here, for example, 2022 is here at the bottom, but maybe I want it to go from oldest to newest. So I can do that like this. So this is newest to oldest, and then sorting it from oldest to newest. So that's kind of how you can do that, or by the user's name, whatever else. So it's kind of useful to know that this feature update list kind of exists or where to find it, because it can also kind of give you some examples of things you can think about or use, because these are sort of like major product updates that they've made, over the past couple of years. So actually, the idea for the one that we just did today with this kind of yes, no, repeating item logic and so on, this one here actually came from just kind of looking at the product update list and going all the way to the bottom. I was just kind of curious, like what were some major updates that they made more towards the beginning, or sort of like earlier days of the tool. And so one of the things they say here, if you read it, it says add logic to or based on repeating questions. So one of the most powerful question types is this repeating or looping question. And they said we've added functionality to allow you to set page logic based on whether there are any of a repeating item and set logic to those repeating items. So that's kind of where this video comes from, is just reading this one line. So you can get some inspiration for things that you can try in your workflows by reviewing even old updates from 2019 or 2021. And you can also quickly access the wish list if you want. So if you see something that you want to have, then you can just suggest a feature here. So that is all for today, and I hope that was useful, and I'll see you in the next video.